I'm not kidding when I say this, people. But one of my favorite people on this planet we call Earth is joining us right now on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line. You know him, you love him. Formerly NBC Sports Philadelphia, formerly out there in Sacramento with CBS, and now CBS Chicago's own sports director, the great Marshall Harris. What's up, Marshall?
Mark, thanks for having me. Always good to see your face, and I know you're holding it down in the Philadelphia.
Yes, I am, sir. Yes, I am. I'm still looking forward to one of those phone calls that I get, that some of our mutual friends get, where you don't have chauffeurs, you have show friends. And I'm just waiting for that one call. Yeah, I'm just waiting for that one call where you need me to pick you up from the airport.
Listen, I was in Philadelphia last weekend, as it happens to be, and I had people carting me around. Yes.
And you're the friend that we don't mind because we love you so damn much. How is it? Absolutely. Congratulations on the new gig in Chicago. How's it going for you out there?
It's going well, man. It's different here than other places I've lived. I've been in, obviously, Philadelphia for 11 years, Sacramento for 2.5 years, Pittsburgh for 2 years before that, Cincinnati 2 years before that. I pick up different things about these markets and the way that they consume their sports and engage in their sports. And it's really fun to understand how different cities see the professional sports team specifically, but also college and otherwise. And I think here it's just a sense of we want to be good. We're not quite there yet with so many different teams, and having two baseball teams in the same town, that's different for me. And it's been fun because, as you know, I am a baseball guy when everything is said and done.
Yes, you certainly are, man. You certainly are. When it comes to like where you're at as far as for the station itself, are you guys more Southsiders in that territory? Or are you guys more Cubbies guys? What do you got? Where do you guys lie there?
We are right down the middle, as we should be as an unbiased news organization. We are actually in the loop, so we're like seriously between the rivers and the lake that you're used to. We sit there, and we're in a position right now where you walk outside and it takes, I live in Printers Row, which is the top of the South Loop. It takes about 20 minutes to get to Guaranteed Rate Field where the White Sox play. And it takes about 20 minutes to get to Wrigley where the Cubs play. But, we cover them fairly. I'm not saying they deserve equal coverage all the time, but when they do, we do that. But the White Sox are a better team. The Cubs, they're in rebuild mode.
Mm-hmm. All right, I got to ask you this to swing it back to the Philadelphia area before we even talk about the Bulls and Zach LaVine. I just got to get your thoughts because you are a man for all seasons on the way the Sixers season ended. Of course, they made the trade for Harden and Embiid gets hurt in the playoffs. What were your thoughts when you saw the Sixers get bounced out yet again in the Eastern Conference semifinals?
I think the number one thing for me was just like, I wish Embiid was actually healthy because I think we're seeing a shell of a man who showed how dominant he can be over the last couple of regular seasons. And James Harden, like, he's not the James Harden of old, but I don't think he's as bad as he played in this postseason. Also, Tyrese Maxey, I think there you've got like a legit guy. And you can go down the roster of times that the Sixers could have had a legit guy. You can just look in Phoenix, the guy just got eliminated in Mikal Bridges.
Sure.
And understand that, like, you're chasing something, but you're shedding things in order to chase. And you end up looking at the puzzle and like, what do we have left? And what do we do next? And it's convoluted, but that's why you're paying Daryl Morey all that money to figure it out. I think next season they could be a contender, but I don't think the group they have right now is going to win anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think first off, you don't have a bench. Right. Second off, I think you still need another piece to your starting five puzzle. Matisse Thybulle in the playoffs couldn't play in Toronto because the vaccine fell out of favor with a lot of people here in Philadelphia. Not just for that, but how he played when he came back. So there's a rumor that's out there right now saying that Matisse Thybulle could be coveted by the Chicago Bulls. Sports director of CBS Chicago, Marshall Harris. There's a connection there in the front office of the Bulls. Possibly Zach LaVine could be on the trading block. When you hear those rumors, do you just think it's just that talk, or do you think there's any substance there?
I think there could be substance there. I want to believe it's just talk. Here's why. Zach LaVine played hurt basically probably 2/3 to 3/4 of the season, the back end of the season, certainly. And people are like, well, the Bulls, yeah, they're decent in the regular season, but they're not a playoff team. Well, they were hurt. A couple of things you got to remember. Lonzo Ball, he's been out since for a long time. LaVine missed stretches and still wasn't right on his one knee. He'll probably have to get some stuff done in the offseason. And, I understand he's a free agent. Nobody can pay him more than the Chicago Bulls can pay him, sign it to a bigger contract than the Chicago Bulls. We never got to see this Chicago Bulls team whole. And that's not an excuse, because how many teams do you actually get to see whole over the course of a playoff season? You look right now, the team that's probably everyone's pick to win it all, the Golden State Warriors. Look at how beat up and hurt they were for stretches of the season. None of that matters, because when it came time to play in the playoffs, they were whole. So first things first, get your team to the postseason whole. The Bulls weren't whole. The Sixers weren't whole. Other teams weren't whole. Now, some people overcome, whether you're talking about like the Boston Celtics playing without Robert Williams for a good chunk of their postseason. It just comes down to, can you build enough of a team where the bench and the depth is good enough that there's not a huge fall off when somebody's not playing? Clearly, if you have an MVP candidate of the likes of Joel Embiid, if he gets hurt, everything changes. And we saw what happened when he came back for 2 games after missing the first 2 games of the playoff series where the Sixers get eliminated. So I'm just interested to see what each of these teams does to become more whole and try to preserve themselves throughout the course of an 82 regular game season, which most teams now look at as preliminary. Not like it's the preseason perhaps, but maybe like it's the preseason plus. As long as you get into position to be able to make the playoffs, that's all that matters. And being healthy when the playoffs start, because for a lot of these teams, making the playoffs is not good enough. It's not going to shift the gears of the fanhood or ownership, depending on where you are.
Yeah, like, trading 4 years of your basketball fandom to only get bounced down in the Eastern Conference semifinals regularly. Like, yeah, it's not good enough to just make the playoffs or just the Eastern Conference semis. So
did that happen somewhere?
Yeah, you might have been here for a portion of that. I don't know. Most of it, actually. Marshall, but when it comes to Chicago, do you think that if they were to trade Zach LaVine, it would be Tyrese Maxey has to be involved? Is that the type of deal that you would see on the table if they were to move on from him?
My favorite thing about these trade rumors, right, is that when a fan base has fans who say, we can just trade for Zach LaVine.
Right.
Well, you got to give something to get something. And if you're, defecating on your own players, but then trying to shove them over somewhere else in a deal, that's not realistic. Let's stop doing that, okay? The Bulls want to win now. The Sixers really want to win now because of that finite window with a big man like Joel Embiid. I don't know how many more years he can do what he's been doing the last couple of seasons. And the Bulls, they have a similar window when you talk about a guy like DeMar DeRozan. Like, I don't know if Nikola Vucevic, former Sixer, will be back next year for the Bulls. They need somebody who can really get in the paint and be a rim protector. They have a lot of questions they need to answer themselves. Am I saying it's impossible that the Bulls would move Zach LaVine? No, it's not impossible because of how sign and trades work in the NBA, and that's part of the process. But I will say this. For the Bulls to give up Zach LaVine, they've got to be getting something back that makes sense. And what are you giving up besides Tyrese Maxey to make it make sense? And so I understand from the Sixers perspective, you don't want to give up Tyrese Maxey. Well, then maybe you should just ride with Tyrese Maxey and figure out what you can do about perhaps production from the spot that's getting paid all the money that Tobias Harris signed a contract for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he'd be on the block as well. The rumor right now, and I know you've seen it as well, that they want to flip Tobias Harris for like a Bradley Beal, possibly Zach LaVine as well. I don't see that matching up too much. It might because of the money, but the other idea is a Bradley Beal possibly coming to Philadelphia.
I like Bradley Beal in Philadelphia. That on its own is just like saying, but if you're the Washington Wizards, you're trying to trade Bradley Beal, aren't you going to want draft assets for him? Tell me about the Sixers draft assets right about now.
Well, the Nets said no to the one first-round pick, so that's still the Sixers still have that. But after that, not so good. Yeah,
so it would be a thing where I think a third team would have to be involved, and there's lots of teams out there that just have a lot of draft picks that are maybe trying to make a move up just to be better than they have been in seasons past. So I think you could get some other teams involved. I mean, everybody isn't Oklahoma City with a billion draft picks for the course of time. But I think you can look around and see who's trying to maybe go into rebuild mode or thinks that the pieces they have just don't fit together. This is where you got to be creative as a general manager. And we're seeing that with Arturas Karnisovas right now here in Chicago. And perhaps with Daryl Morey in Houston. He got the guy he wanted, James Harden. Let's be honest. When he came to Philadelphia, the first thing and the last thing he was thinking about was, how do I get James Harden paired up with Joel Embiid?
Mm-hmm.
He's got that now. It's not good enough as the roster is currently constructed, but who knows what he could pull out of a proverbial rabbit's hat, or the hat that a rabbit would be in, as the magician that he's been in the past.
Right. Yeah. As you pointed out earlier, he makes all that money. Let's see him go out there. Everyone talks about James Harden being the Houston version of James Harden. How about Daryl Morey be the Houston version of Daryl Morey? And then, we'll see the Sixers land, hopefully, another star here in Philadelphia. Marshall, great catching up with you. Everybody, make sure you're following Marshall if you're not already. Come on, people. What are you doing? Right there.
Yeah,
the director.
It's on air. Come see me. Come see me on the Twitter.
See him on the Twitterverse as well. Marshall, great catching up with you, my friend. You look like $1 million as per usual. Congrats on all your success. Now out there in Chicago.
Mark, thanks so much for having me, man. Good luck to continued success in everything you do.
Thank you, brother. Marshall Harris joining us on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line.